Well, I mean, honestly, where do you even start with this rabble that we see on the other side? It is beyond embarrassment that the people that occupy the government benches, I'm not actually sure they've even realised they're the benches they're sitting in, nor that they realise what the role of governing is, because clearly they don't understand that the very fundamental basis between every single government that this country has ever had is that its primary role is to keep Australians safe. And what we see from those opposite is they are absolutely failing on every account. And the lack of cohesiveness that we see from those opposite, we have Minister Wong yelling at these on this side of the chamber for allegedly playing politics, while we have Minister Watt getting up with nothing but personal smears. And I mean, if one wants to talk about playing politics, perhaps they should turn around and talk to their own colleagues and suggest that politics, when it's played well, or politics when it's done right, is you actually play the ball and not the man. Yet we see from those obviously a fear has set in. They are feeling very nervous as more and more commentators talk about this term being a one-term government. The nerves are setting in. Everyone's getting a bit antsy and a bit edgy. So what do? They absolutely lower themselves to personal attacks. We saw yesterday a 2-minute statement from one senator that was actually nothing but smears on the opposition leader, Mr Dutton. Absolute personal smears, denigration, imputations. There was plenty of points of order, something you don't normally see in 2-minute statements, because those opposite have absolutely nothing to say about their own achievements, because there are none. Absolutely none. And we hear this week out of caucus that whilst we get answers when we ask about cost of living pressures and how Australians are doing it tough, when we ask questions about it, we hear from those opposites, don't worry about it, we've got a 10-point plan, we've done $23 billion in cost of living pressure-saving measures. But no, what we hear from caucus, and I take Senator Walsh's interjection because I'm not sure whether she was one of the ones or not who asked for crisis talks from the Treasurer to come and speak to the backbench because they were concerned that the 10-point plan is about as good as it's not even as good as the piece of paper it's written on, and that the $23 billion they allege as a cost of living sort of savings measure for Australian families is having no impact whatsoever. There is nothing that is cutting through. There is nothing that's taking pressure off any Australian families. But if you listen to those opposite, and for those of you in the gallery, you've never had it so good. These guys never had it so good. It's all going tickety-boo under them. There's no cost of living crisis. Everyone's having a great time thanks to the achievements of this government. But I think what is absolutely more concerning, and I know cost of living pressures is hitting absolutely every Australian in their hip pocket, but the fact that this government has been caught asleep at the wheel when it comes to the recent High Court decision. And we've seen consistent contradictions, and I think that's the only thing we can say, consistent contradictions, because we have Minister Watt come in day one and say no one's going to be released until the reasons come out. Then he comes in on the next day and says, actually, I have to correct the record. People are being released as we speak. And then we had Minister O'Neill and Minister Giles out there going, well, there's nothing we can do. This is a decision of the High Court. We need to respect the High Court. And then that was quickly repudiated by the fact that, well, what is the point of the government if you don't legislate? That's what we're actually here for, is to put laws in place. And those laws are there to protect Australians. But those opposite missed the boat. They were caught asleep at the wheel. But they're now, talking about the relationship between the Greens and the Coalition in what was one vote in the House this week. I can promise you, if we had a little diagram of that, there's much more collusion over there between the Greens and Labor. They just get upset when Greens cheat on them and come over to us. Clearly monogamy is not their strong suit. But they talk about the bill, that they're going to look to for preventative detention. There is no bill. The reason we're not going, no one's seen it, no one can talk about it, no one can give any details, is there is no bill. Hasn't been drafted yet. This is how asleep at the wheel this government is. We've had Claire O'Neill out there talking tough, saying no one's going home until we have these measures in place. Sorry, the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Urquhart, I apologise. The Minister for Home Affairs says we're not going home, but unfortunately they may go home because the bill's not even drafted. This government is a joke and you need to apologise to the Australian people.